two.
One of the greatest joys in our marriage is that we share the same Christian faith together. We even got to know each other at church. Our faith in Jesus Christ sets the foundation of our marriage and our family. Today, we're going to discuss further on the joys of sharing your Christian faith and together in marriage.
In this episode, we will talk about the importance of sharing your faith in marriage. We will talk about why church attendance and church involvement are important for your family. We'll also talk about how you have to find the right balance between going to church and your family. You have to find the right balance between that time. And we'll talk about how we didn't always find the right balance, and it kind of led to us cutting back on our church activities. And we'll talk about how that happened. But sometimes we had to cut back on church activity and other things because it was hindering our family. We're going to talk about that, so stay tuned. All right, I'm Joey.
I'm Lori.
And we are Christ-Centered Marriage and Family. We're doing an episode on marriage, Christ-Centered Marriage, and this is going to be the number 3 of our installment. We've done one on dating and the good things in life. And the first one, the good things in marriage during hard times. It don't sound good, does it? But, when you do hard times, it makes your marriage better. We talked about good dates and how married couples neglect that. And you and your spouse, your husband and wife, you have to go out and go on dates. Even that means getting a babysitter. I know it's good to take your family out and do things, but there's not the same as you and your spouse going out on a date. So we talked about that. So if you haven't watched that, go back and watch those episodes. They're still up, and encourage you to do that. So next week we won't be making a long string video. We're going to be in Branson. We're going to be at our second time around for the Weekend to Remember. Family Life puts on Weekend to Remember marriage counseling, and if you are struggling in your marriage, or if you're not sure, you might be on the brink of divorce, or you might, you know what? We have the best marriage. We just want to go. We saw people there were married 50 years, and they just wanted to go and have a good time. We're going to go because it's going to be good for our marriage, and it help us get more resources. And what we're going to do, it's going to be in Branson. We're going to do a handful of short videos. We're going to do a couple of in Silver Dollar City. So we're going to spend 3 or 4 hours at Silver Dollar City Friday before the conference because we have Silver Dollar City passes. We love that place. You might not be amusement park places, but we like it. And then we're going to try to recap the nights of the Weekend to Remember and kind of give you an idea of how it's going for our marriage conference, and maybe you might want to go. So if there's a Weekend to Remember coming to the area near you, we encourage you to go. So we're going to do some short videos next week, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, about that experience. So let's get into it. Last year, Lori and I went through a time where we faced some tough decisions about our church and where we were attending. We were attending a good church. We faced some decisions, and we're going to talk about that later. There were some things about the church where we had been attending for 12 years or more that we just didn't like. And we thought we should leave, find another church. And we talked to our 3 boys and our daughter-in-law, and we told them what was going on, and they understood, and they supported us. And our goal was for all of us as a family, me and Lori, our boys, our daughter-in-law, our grandbabies, to all go to that small church. That wasn't really what happened.
So we went to the small church out in the country where there were some friends that we knew they were serving there. We attended a few Sundays, and we decided that that's where we wanted to be. And so we told that group of people that we intended to make that church our home. It was about 15-ish people. So we did that for about 7 months. We attended that church, and we had Sunday morning services. We had Thursday night Bible studies, and once or twice a month, they would have some special singing services. So we would do that.
Awesome.
And it was good. We enjoyed it. We were connected to that small church. We loved it, but we just kept feeling like something was missing. And we just kind of shook it off and thought, no, this is the right decision, but we just kind of felt like something was missing. Our boys, our daughter-in-law, and we have 2 granddaughters. They were not going to the church with us. And so a few weeks ago, we found ourselves asking, okay, Did we make a mistake? Do we need to go back to the church where we're at? And so we had another hard decision about church involvement. And so we'll talk about that more a little bit later in the conclusion of this video.
Yeah. So, you might think, are you leaving us hanging? Yep, we're going to leave you hanging. But you'll have to, this is one of them YouTube strategies that I said I wouldn't do, but we're going to do it. We're going to make you stay to the end to find out what we did. So our main part of this episode is how you should share your Christian faith as a husband and a wife and as leaders of your family, how your Christian faith, I'm not talking about any other religion because we don't promote any other religion. We promote Jesus Christ. That's it. So if you're watching this video, we talk about Christ-centered marriage, Jesus Christ. Yes. We don't talk about any other religion. If that's what you're part of, we still encourage you to watch this video. We're not condemning your religion, but we would like to encourage you to follow Jesus Christ and give your life to Him. So we think it's important to share your Christian faith as a husband and wife and as a family. So we're going to get right into it with some questions. So we're going to ask each other questions. And we wrote down some answers, and this is going to be a question and answer session. So question number 1 is for Lori. What are some benefits of sharing the Christian faith together with your spouse?
So the theme of our channel is Christ-centered marriage. So yes, it is important for Joey and I to share our faith together. We both found interest in each other through our shared faith. Having both come out of failed marriages, we were both looking for a spouse who put Jesus Christ first in all things. And we believe that God put us together because of this. Sharing our Christian faith together has been the foundation of our marriage and our family. Attending church together, growing in our faith together, and leading our children in a Christ-centered family have always been the top priorities in our marriage. Okay, so what are some reasons why you and your spouse should go to church together?
Yeah, so that's pretty easy. So for some of you watching, you might think, well, this seems like a no-brainer. But and it may sound like a strange question, but we know many married couples that don't go to church together. And I don't know what the reasoning is. And even when I was growing up in Kentucky, there were people that went to my church that their husband or their wife didn't attend. Some have a spouse that they just don't attend the church. You may be married to an unbeliever. And like Paul told the Corinthians, if that unbeliever is good to you and the marriage is good, don't do away with that unbeliever, because the goal is for you to cause that unbeliever, by your influence, by your testimony of Jesus Christ, cause that unbelieving spouse to become a believer. So there are some married couples who has a spouse that's not believing and they don't go to church. And there are some who are married and attend separate churches. You know, it's very strange. Like, that can't be. It is. It happens. And you can contest to this, right? In where you grew up in your family.
Yep. My mom was Baptist and my dad was Catholic. And we went to the Catholic church. My mom stayed home and we went to the Catholic church.
Right. Yeah. And I'm not going to insinuate other people, but you may think, you know what, that's me. You may say, my husband or my wife goes to a different church than me, or they don't go at all. We feel it's of utmost importance that the husband and the wife go to church, the same church together, a good Bible-believing church. They go together faithfully, and they get involved as much as their family will let them. But you shouldn't get too involved, because you don't want to get to the point where your involvement in church hinders your family. Going to church together as a husband and wife creates a unity in your marriage, in your relationship, and it creates a spiritual unity, and it helps strengthen the faith of married couples. And just as Paul writes in Ephesians chapter 5, verses 22 through 33, and that's our marriage theme. When we were coming out of this marriage transformation last year, about this time last year, we've been through a whole year after our first Weekend to Remember conference. And one of the things, we started reading the Bible together. We started praying together. And I was just focused right on Ephesians 5, 22 through 33. And I'm thinking, that's it. If you would ask me, what is the one Bible passage that will strengthen your marriage, that will explain what a husband and wife in a Christian relationship should be. Ephesians 5:22 through 33. Wives should submit to their husbands. Husbands should love their wives like Christ loved the church. That's it. And if a husband is being led by Christ, he will want to lead his wife. And that means that she attends a good Christian church with him. Husband and wife attend together because the wife is following the husband's lead. And husbands, if you're not taking your wife to church, you need to. That's what the Bible commands us. A husband being led by Christ will have that sanctifying effect upon his wife. Now, does a whole husband make his wife, do I make her holy? No, but my example and my leadership causes her to want to follow me. So if I'm following Christ, she'll want to follow Christ. And if I'm teaching her the Christ-like way, she'll want to listen and she'll want to submit to that teaching, and it will cause her to be in that process of becoming holy, which is what sanctification is. And that's in verse 26 of Ephesians chapter 5. Because as the husband is leading his wife like Christ loved the church, by doing so, he will cause his wife to be blameless. That doesn't mean she's going to be perfect, nope. But it's going to cause her to want to pursue that holiness with her husband. And that's in verse 27. If a husband is neglecting his duty to lead his wife into worshiping Jesus Christ, he's not loving her like Christ loved the church. So that's of utmost importance. Likewise, if a wife refuses to follow her husband in Christian leadership, she's not submitting to him. So the whole submission thing is it's not about physical duties or cleaning the house and cooking and sex and whatever. It's more about submitting to your husband spiritually. Because if you submit to your husband spiritually, and if your husband's leading you in a Christ-like way, all that other stuff will fall into place. You don't have to worry about that. Another great benefit of a husband and wife going to church together is that it sets a great example for the children and the grandchildren to follow after. It gives them a lifelong impression of what a Christian parent looks like. Hopefully, it will be a reminder for them when they have a family of their own to follow after their parents' example. Okay, so I hope all that makes sense. Lori, this is for you. Why should you and your spouse serve together in church?
I think serving in your church as a married couple is a great way to not only strengthen your faith together, but as a way to strengthen your marriage commitment. Serving together in church, you see yourselves as a team and not two individuals. You see yourselves serving God together in unity, just as marriage was intended. One of the things that we have been told by others is they love the example Joey and I set as faithful members serving together in the church. And so that was one of the things, many things we were doing before, as we taught Sunday school together. He would sometimes substitute teach on a Wednesday night, and I was in the youth, so I would come over and I would sit to support him when he was doing that. So we were together there doing that.
And sometimes when all the boys were here many years ago, we would have family time on a Sunday or Saturday, and we'd sit down and read the Bible, and maybe I'd try to teach them something, and we did that kind of regular for a while. Then now, oldest boy's got a family of his own with two sweet little girls and a wonderful wife, and our second oldest boy is just graduated from his college, and he got his associate's degree, so he's part one of his college journey. He's not even halfway done. He's going to continue going to college, and our youngest boy is still in high school and trying to get a job. So we don't really have a complete family anymore. So the time for us to get together and do that is still slim, but we still try to. So and what my point is you can also serve at home. You can have your own worship at home too. You can worship together as a family in church, and you can worship at home. Okay.
All right, Joey, why should you take your family to church?
Good question. Now go back to when I grew up. I grew up in a family in small town Kentucky that valued church attendance. And I don't really recall a time when I was never in church, and um, or when we decided we're not going to go to church. We always went to church, even whenever we were doing activity on the weekend. It never took away from our church attendance on Sunday or Sunday night. And people used to tell me that I was a kid in the nursery, and I don't remember that because I was so young that
Using the nursery.
I was in the nursery. But the point is, from the day I was born, I grew up in church, and when I was young, probably 9 or 10 years old, I finally realized that not everybody went to church. Like, I can't believe not everybody goes to church. That's just weird. That's the mind frame I had, that going to church was like number one priority. Um, and I know not every family is like my family when I was growing up, and not every family goes to church or has been brought up in church, and it's not automatic for them. I know that some families are new to the Christian faith. You may have some families that are in their 20s or in their 30s, and then they say, "Okay, kids, we're gonna start going to church." And you may have teenagers go, "Going to church? What?" But still do it. I think it's important for you as a husband and wife to take your family to church and be involved in church activities as much as you can. We're going to clarify it later, but as much as you can, and don't overdo it, because it lets both members of your family, your husband, your wife, and the kids, it let them know what your priorities are. Serving Jesus. Serving Jesus is your top priority. And it says to everybody else, this is who you are. To people at church, that okay, this Rose family is a Christ-loving family. When you go to school or to work or in the community, they're going to see they go to church. They're Christians. They know that you represent Christ, and they see that. It sets the example. Your children will benefit from being part of a church family by being around like-minded Christians, and the influence of other Christians around them will benefit them for the rest of their lives. They'll take on these impressions of great men and women and young adults, youth. They'll say, this is what being like a Christ-like person is. This is what I want to be like. These are the people I want to emulate instead of some of the people in the world.
Mhm.
Being involved in church attendance and church activities gives you a way to escape the pressures and temptations of the sinful world around you. So, even when the kids don't want to go to church, and even when you're like, oh, I don't feel like going to church, it's, it's still it's better than some place you could be. You could be doing things in the world that are not Christ-like, that doesn't help you in your spiritual growth with Christ. And neglecting your time of church attendance and church fellowship will cause you to slip back into a worldliness, secular mind frame, and you shouldn't do that. So the more you go to church, the more you get your family in church, the more of a Christ-like mind frame and less of a secular mind frame you'll have. I hope that makes sense. And it gives you the freedom to live Christ-like lives and grow as believers in Christ. It gives you the confidence. This is who I am. So when I go out in that secular world, I'm not going to be ashamed. I'm not going to have to hide my faith, because this is who I am. I believe this, I live it, and I'm going to show it. Okay. Lori, let's have you wrap it up, and then we'll start finishing up here.
Okay. A few weeks ago, we told the small group of members at the small church we had been attending that we would no longer be a part of their fellowship. And we were going back to the church we had left last year. That was a hard Sunday.
It was hard.
It was a very
A
difficult
lot of
thing
tears.
for Joey and me to do, but we felt like this was what God really wanted in our lives. As much as we loved that church, which we did love that church, we
Yeah.
loved the people there, very good people. And they loved us. They were very sad to see us leave, but we just felt like God wanted us to be back at the church where we were serving and had been for 12 years. We realized what was missing at the small church was our family. Our boys, our daughter-in-law, and our granddaughters were still going to the church where we had left. We knew it was time to go back. The first Sunday of May, Joey and I sat with our 3 boys, our daughter-in-law, and 2 sweet little grandbabies, little girls, in the church again. We also got warm welcomes from many of the members of that church that we had left previously. And we knew that we were indeed back in God's will, back where God wanted us to be.
Yeah, that's right. And it was that Sunday that we left a small church. It was tough. And many tears from us and them, but I just said I think we're out of God's will. Not that this church is wrong.
Mm-mm.
There's nothing
It was a
wrong with
good
that church. It
church.
was a
Yep.
good Bible believing Christian church, and what they taught was true and accurate. There was no errors there, and they loved us. It was a good, loving family, but it just wouldn't work. I don't think it's where God wanted us to be. Before Lori and I went back to the former church again, I arranged a time where I met with the new pastor and had a pleasant talk with him. So when we left the old church, the other pastor had been there for 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
Great guy. He was retiring, and that wasn't the reason why we left. It had a small part, and we sat with him and we shared our reasons, and he said, "Hope those reasons. I wish those reasons wouldn't make you leave."
Mm-hmm.
And that was probably the wisest words I've heard. But there was other reasons, and but now we realize that it may not have been the right thing for us to leave, and that we were going to come back and join the church once again. And I explained to Lori that I had undergone. I explained to the new pastor of this church, that Lori and I had undergone a marriage transformation about this time last year, and we had realized that we were busy, and it affected our marriage and affected our family. And one of the areas that we were busy was in church. We were overcommitted in church activity, and the new pastor, he understands. He said, "I understand," and he said, "I get it. I have seen it." He's a wise pastor. He said, "I have seen that many times in my years as a pastor." He said, "You saying that you and your wife was overcommitted and feel like you was doing too much," he said, "that is nothing new to me." And he said, "I totally understand." And I said, "We needed to step away, take a break." And he said, "And I understand that too." And he also said, "I want you to come back to our church, and we're going to welcome you back, and we are not going to have you do anything that you don't want to do. And if you don't want to be involved in anything for a while, I'm going to make sure the church respects that." And I appreciate that. Um, he was overjoyed to have heard that we were going to come back, and he was very understanding. He was understanding for the reasons why we left, and he said, as a wise, loving pastor does, um, "I don't fault you. We don't have any ill feelings towards you." And he said, and nobody in the church is going to have any ill feelings towards you, and everybody just is going to be overjoyed to see you come back. So in the past few weeks, since we have returned, so we've been going back to that church. This is probably our 4th week now, and our church that we used to call our home, we're going to call our home again. And we've had several conversations with the new pastor and his wife, and we have shared that we don't want to be involved, and he said, "It's fine. We're not going to have you involved, at least not for right now. We will again as the time arises. But right now, we're not going to be involved in a lot of extra things." And he said, "I'm going to make sure that doesn't happen."
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want to be involved. And here's what I told that the new pastor. So I don't want to be involved in the deacons group as an assistant deacon or whatever it was they called me. I don't want to teach Sunday school. So I'm numbering things here. And I don't want to work in the youth group. And I don't want to work in the kids group. And I don't want to be on the security team or the personnel committee or small group leader or filling in teaching church service on Wednesday night, all at the same time. So these things I just listed were the things that we were doing, and she was involved with me in Sunday school and with the youth and a lot of other things, and she would volunteer every youth event on a Friday night and a Saturday night, and coming in early and staying late every week, and it just wore us out. And when I told the news pastor that, he just kind of sat back and said, "Wow, a lot of things. You were involved in a lot of things." I said, "We didn't know how to say no." It ain't like the church forced that stuff. The church did not force any of that on us, but we just didn't know how to say no. And all of that just got to us. And we thought leaving was the right thing. Then we realized that when the pastor said, maybe you needed to step away for a short time, and now God wants you to come back. So, when I was doing all these things, it had gotten to the point where our church involvement in all these other activities was causing great harm to our marriage and our family. We were just worn out. We'd come home from these activities, and we'd come home, and we were just disconnected. We were just so worn out, we were just disconnected with each other. And after we came back from that marriage conference, we realized that we're too busy.
Mm-hmm.
So we had to cut back some of that stuff. And the new pastor, he said, I totally get it. And now we're back in our new church, and we have been reunited with the people who we used to serve with and who loved us, and we loved them. And nobody there condemned us for leaving. And there were a lot of tears when just like when we,
Tears and hugs.
yeah, just like when we told the small church that we were leaving, there was a lot of tears there. And when we came back to the other church, there was a lot of tears there too. So the 7 months that we were away from that church, the retired pastor who's still there serving as the he's in the retired pastor role. He's still supporting the pastor, and he's still serving just like he always did. He would send me text messages, still does, every morning. I get a message from him asking me how I'm doing, give me a Bible verse, and tell me that he's praying for us. And that had a big impact. And he knew that. He knew that it's going to have an impact on me. So God bless him. He was extremely overjoyed to see us, and a lot of hugs and tears. So now, and we're wrapping this up here. So now we're back at the church where we served for many years. And we recommend that you find a good Christian church. Take your wife, take your spouse, take your husband, take your kids, and serve in a good Christian church. And you won't regret it. It will strengthen your marriage. It will help you grow spiritually, and it will set an example for your kids and those around you to follow. Do you have anything else to add, Lauren?
Well, just serve, but don't overserve.
Right.
Find a good balance.
Learn to say no when you need to say no.
And find something that you like doing. If it's not something that fills you up, then don't do it. Then you're going to get worn out. You're going to hate it, and that's not any way to serve. So just try something out. If it wears you out, you just like, oh, just can't keep doing it. Maybe find something else.
Yeah.
Because I feel like God wants you to serve. Jesus wants you to be involved, but not to the point where it's hurting your marriage, because your marriage is very important to God, and He doesn't want you being too busy at church and not taking care of your.
I was thinking about a good Bible verse or passage to use for this, and I was like, I can't really think of any. I thought of it. It's too late now, but anyway, you can look it up. The story where Jesus goes to the home of Mary and Martha, and they're going to have a big feast for him, and Martha's busy cooking, and Jesus, Mary's over there just sitting down. Tell her to get busy. And Jesus is like, she's sitting here listening to me. I'm teaching her.
And she said she's busy doing what.
That's right.
What's the best thing?
That's right.
That's just
sometimes
in there.
And we were trying to be too much like Martha, and we need to be more like Mary.
Yeah.
That's right. So, hey, that's it. Thank you for watching, and tune in next week. We're going to do some short clips for our weekend trip to Branson. So, thank you, and God bless.